I'm from Connecticut. I was in a long-distance relationship with a girl from Georgia and would often make road trips down to visit her. I don't really mind. I love road trips. I've driven across the United States and back, all on my own. There's just something about traveling the highways of the US by yourself that's just so freeing. To save money, I would sleep in my car. It's not so bad. It's basically camping in a metal tent. Makes you feel like you're really roughing it. I just recline the seat back, keep the key in the ignition just in case, and doze off. No, I don't put anything up to block the windows for privacy. Maybe I should have. The trip down south is a comfortable 2-day drive. My stop would usually be somewhere along the Virginia-North Carolina border. So, for my previous trip, that's exactly where I stopped that night. Rest stops were often less trafficked and thus quieter than truck stops. Normally I would have stopped at a Love's, but I was so tired that I settled for the first rest stop I saw. It was oddly vacant that night, with only a couple lone cars sitting forlorn under the amber street lamps. Most likely travelers with the same idea as myself. I pulled into a parking spot away from the others, under the shadow of a tree and far from the street lamps. I figured I would have more privacy there as opposed to being bathed in light. So I did my usual thing, locked my doors, opened the window just a hair for ventilation, kept my key in, reclined the seat, and went to sleep. I was never interrupted on any of these car camping nights, so I never suspected anything on this one. Then a sharp tap woke me up. At first, I thought I had heard it in my dream. I opened my eyes, a bit confused. Since I was leaned back, I was facing the ceiling and couldn't see anything. I hear another tap, like a tiny object hitting a hard surface. It came in an irregular rhythm. Was it raining? Was water dripping onto my windshield? I'm under a tree. Maybe something fell from the branches. Maybe a squirrel or a bird dropped something. What if a squirrel was climbing around my car? Or what if it wasn't an animal? The thought occurred to me that it might very well be a person poking around outside. What did they want? Were the doors locked? Yes. The keys were in the ignition. I can leave in an instant. Still, I lay there, completely still, pretending to be asleep, pretending I hadn't heard anything, hoping whoever it was, they would leave me alone. It was better to not find out. I was too afraid to find out. It was better to stay here in blissful ignorance. Still, the tapping continued. I had to do something. There was no way I was just going to stay there. I had to look. My heart was pounding. In that moment, it was deafeningly loud. Whoever was out there could probably hear it. I decided. I was going to look. I was going to raise my head up and see what was making the noise. So that's what I did. What met my eyes sent a jolt through my entire body. Every muscle fiber locked up in pure shock at what I saw. The faint glow of the street lamps cast just enough light for me to make out what I was looking at. There in the windshield, staring directly at me, was a face. Someone, I presumed to be a woman, was lying on the hood of my car, her face pressed right up against my windshield. Her face was completely still, locked in a permanent grin. I froze in overwhelming terror. The eyes I stared into appeared to have rolled back, showing only the whites. The nose was turned up, pressed painfully into the glass. The lips stretched wide, revealing horrid, rotten teeth. Even in the darkness, I could tell her skin was sickly pale, contrasting her long, filthy black hair. Whoever this was, she was clearly not in her right mind. I don't know how long I sat there, too afraid to move. Finally, I got a grip on myself and shot my hand to the ignition. It turned over, making, in that instant, the most beautiful sound I ever heard. For a split second, I was afraid I might be caught in a horror movie scenario, the one where the car won't crank as the killer approaches. I reversed as fast as I could, trying not to give this creeper time to try anything. In my panic, I remember activating the windshield wipers in a futile attempt to get her off. I thought, was I about to drive out of here with some wacko holding onto my hood? Thankfully, I didn't have to worry about that, because as soon as I stopped, the woman leapt off, landing on all fours. Seeing my opportunity, I shifted into drive and gunned it. Right as I saw her reaching for the driver's side door. With my foot on the gas, I sped out of the parking lot. Behind me, I heard her let out a piercing shriek like that of an animal. I looked in my rearview mirror, and for a split second, I thought I saw her chasing me. running on all fours, her black hair swinging wildly around her. I couldn't get a good look as I rounded a curve in the road leading out of the rest stop and merged with the highway. There, I picked up speed and drove through the night. I did not dare stop again until I saw the morning light. A few days ago, my girlfriend and I, both in our 20s, were on the home stretch of a big road trip with our dog. As it had been a while since we last stopped, we pulled into a rest stop off of the freeway to stretch the legs and have Doggo take a dump. When we pulled into the rest stop, there were no cars and 3 big semi-trucks parked in a line. Immediately, my girlfriend got out to go into the restroom. I leashed up the dog and stood next to the car, and as she was walking towards the restrooms, I thought I heard someone yell behind me. To my surprise, it was a trucker in the driver's seat of his truck with the window rolled down trying to get my attention. Now, I am generally pretty friendly towards all people, whether they seem shady or not, generally willing to lend a hand. Behind me in the truck was an older gentleman, large, with gray hair and sunglasses. His truck was so loud I couldn't hear what he was saying, so I yelled back, "What?" The trucker yelled something inaudible 3 more times as I asked him, "What?" while shaking my head and holding up my hands to inform him I couldn't hear him. At this point, he seemed visually annoyed that I said "what" 4 times. Okay, understandable. I wanted to see what the deal with this guy was, so I walked halfway between the car and his passenger side truck. "What did you say?" I asked.
"Can you help me look for my phone? I lost it somewhere,"
the trucker said. At this point, I was super caught off guard, as this had all unfolded within the 30 seconds that we parked at the rest stop. To me, it was weird that a trucker was asking a random person stopping at a rest stop to help look for their phone. But maybe he just wanted me to call it. "Where did you lose it at?" I asked.
"I lost it in my truck. Can you come up here and help me look for it?"
The trucker replied in an unnerving tone. In that moment, I was sketched the fuck out. I thought I was about to be abducted. Phone call I could do, but no way was I about to get into this trucker's cab to look for his phone. "Yeah, no," I said sternly but half-heartedly, as I almost thought this guy was joking with me. After a few moments, the trucker then says,
"You won't help me look for it?"
My adrenaline was pumping, so I yelled back, "Get out of here!" in a threatening tone, knowing damn well I had nothing to defend us should something go wrong. I put the doggo back into the car and pulled out my phone to pretend I was calling the cops while he slowly drove and then stopped again to ask if I was going to help.
"Are you going to help me?"
I then screamed again, "No! Get the F out of here! I'm calling the cops!" After that reply, he stepped on the gas and exited to the freeway. I stood and watched when finally my girlfriend came back from the restrooms, wondering why I looked like I just saw a ghost. I don't know if it was an overreaction, but it sketched me the F out that he asked me to get into the truck. This happened when I was about 5 or 6 years old. My mother was a dealer for Coca-Cola at the time in the rural regions of my city, so that means she and her fellow employees would be delivering crates of Coke to little villages in the boonies regularly. On this particular day, no deliveries were scheduled, and anything that was to be delivered was done, so we were all hanging out at the warehouse. My mom figured since it was the end of the week, let's all go on a little road trip with the crew. Everyone agreed, then one of the crew suggested we go see this new inland resort a couple towns over. It was nothing fancy, just a large area with a few pools, a pond where you can catch your own catfish for meals and bamboo huts along the side. We all get in the truck and off we go. We arrive sometime in the early afternoon, and Mom is telling members of the crew what to do. One books a hut, one gets our stuff in order, and someone to keep an eye on me. While I look around but never wandering too far, I see this older lady, maybe late 40s or 50s, looking at me. I was a friendly kid, so I waved and smiled. She just stared at me, so I told the crew member who was looking after me, who in turn told my mom. She informed everyone to watch out for her and to make sure someone always has eyes on me. We proceed on merrymaking. I'm swimming in the pool. Mom and the crew are having a few drinks and eating catfish. This dragged on till maybe 7 p.m. I stayed in the pool majority of the time and would just come up for a bite or a drink of soda, but on my last attempt to jump in, I see from the far end of the pool the same old lady. I immediately tell my mom, who looks in her direction and tells everyone we're packing up and going back to the warehouse. We get back, and Mom requests that 3 of the guys stay the night at the old house, and if they could to stay up one at a time just to be safe. Sometime in the middle of night, I get woken up to my mom telling me to be quiet and follow her to one of the bedrooms in the back and to leave my slippers on so we don't make noise. I ask why, and she pointed outside on the other side of the gate was the same lady. Mom insists I go to one of the rooms in the back of the house and stay there till she gets me. I follow and then hear her wake the crew up. I hear them leave the house and confront the lady by the gate with questions like, "Who are you? What do you want? Why did you follow us?" But Mom said she just glared at them while mumbling, and now and then would crane her neck, looking past them as if to look for someone. She eventually leaves, and in the morning I am taken back to the city to my actual house while my mom went back to the town to continue her job and inform the local authorities of the lady. I never saw the lady again, and it's been 20 years. But I did ask my mom about the old lady again and whatever happened to her report. She said that she and the 3 crew members that confronted her went straight to the town hall before they started on work. It's a small town, so it wasn't that hard to find someone via description, and they did find out who she was. Local authorities went to this little bamboo hut on the edge of town about a mile into some wooded area. The plan was to just give her a warning, but when they got to the hut, nobody was there. They checked the windows, but nobody was inside or around the area. Someone did live there, because there were ducks and chickens in a small pen on the side of the house. They decided to just leave and update Mom later in the afternoon. Although there was nothing to update, they never saw anyone at the house again.
This happened a while ago now, but a lot of stories that I've read in this sub make me think of this encounter and are similar. A friend and I, both 22 female at the time, attended Outside Lands in San Francisco back in 2021. This incident didn't happen at Outside Lands, but at the Airbnb my friend and I were staying at in Oakland. I am originally from California and know that Oakland can be a little sometimes, but accommodations for that weekend were pretty scarce by the time we got around to getting our tickets and plans together. The neighborhood and particular place seemed nice, and overall it was. Neither of us lived in California at this time, but really enjoy travel and road trips, so we decided to drive to the festival. Not only do I have out-of-state plates, but I also feel that at the time, my car gave off a potentially solo female traveler vibe. Have since worked on toning it down when traveling so I can be a bit more inconspicuous. After the second night of the festival, my friend and I got back to the Airbnb pretty late, around 1 a.m., and I was having trouble sleeping, so I decided to go out to my car to smoke a joint and call my boyfriend. I've been sitting in my car for maybe 5 minutes when I see a car pull up and park behind my car. This was all street parking in a residential neighborhood, so at first I thought that it could be a neighbor. But another few minutes passed before I realized that the car was still on and nobody had ever gotten out of it to go into a house or whatever. At this point, I had began to feel uneasy. Luckily, I was still on the phone with my boyfriend. Initially, him and I agreed that since the entrance to the Airbnb couldn't be more than 10 feet from where I was sitting in my parked car, I should just run inside real quick and make sure to lock the door. So I went to open my driver's door to get out. And I hadn't even gotten 1 foot out of the car when I see the car that was parked behind me start to pull forward, but not all the way out into the road to leave. I immediately got super uneasy and was legitimately scared in a way I quite haven't felt before. I thank my lucky stars every single day for this feeling because I immediately got back in the car, locked my doors, and sped off pretty quickly. I spent the next half hour driving around Oakland, making sure nobody was following me, and after I was sure I wasn't being followed, I went back to the Airbnb. And the car that had parked behind me earlier was gone. I was definitely relieved and felt safe to go inside and go to sleep. But I also felt sad and uneasy because I knew that whoever was in the car couldn't have had great intentions. I did let the owner of the Airbnb know of this situation and learned my lesson about going out to my car alone at night in certain areas. Moral of the story: always trust your gut.
Don't skip this.